Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Ni hao, Buenos dias, Ezuche, Akwaba, Vilkman, what up though? This is the weekly recitation, weekly Holy Scriptures recitation. Recording for portion numero 21, Ki Tisa. This is an advanced recording. The date today is 124.5.8 semicolon 72 semicolon 1 full 13. So there it is. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Excuse me. A little bit of advanced recording, so it's a little bit out of protocol, but here it is. Portion 21, Ki Tisa, which includes from the Torah, Ki Tisa, which is Shmot 30, Shmot 30, 11 a 34, 35. Within the Bhagavad Gita, it is chapter, it's the Karma Yoga numero 3. Within the Digha Nikaya, it is the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, chapter 1, Sutta numero 16 within the Digha Nikaya. Gospels, it is Mark 13 a 14. Within the Quran, it is Surah Al-Hajj numero 22. And then Tao Te Ching, it is chapters 40 a 45. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Vaheguru Salam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Vaheguru Salam. Deus noster qui es in cielo, sanctificato nomen tuum. Vaheguru Salam. Dao Kudao, Fehong Dao. Ja. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Sivumasu savjagatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Vagebiyam. Ubuntu. Shabonum. Fekako. Akwaba upendo na amani. Umejeka. Sheshe. Kamusunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yela wakantaka. Tok odokashingu. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with the God. Atajama yatafanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Deus noster qui es in cielo, sanctificato nomen tuum. Vaheguru Salam. Dao Kudao Fehong Dao. Ja. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher ketzanu b'mosdotav v'tzivanu lasok b'davai Torah. Kyrie eleison. Sivumasu savjagatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Vagebiyam. Ubuntu. Shabonam. Fekako. Akwaba upendo na amani. Umejeka. Sheshe. Kamosunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wakantaka. Tok odokashingu. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with the God. Adjami Aflami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Torah, Ki Tisa, Shmot 30, 11 a 34, 35. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, When you take the sum of the children of Israel according to their numbers, let each one give to the Lord an atonement for his soul when they are counted. Then there will be no plague amongst them when they are counted. This they shall give, every one who goes through the counting, half a shekel according to the holy shekel. 20 gerahs equal 1 shekel. Half of such a shekel shall be an offering to the Lord. Everyone who goes through the counting from the age of 20 and upwards shall give an offering to the Lord. The rich shall give no further, and the poor shall give no less than half a shekel, with which to give the offering to the Lord to atone for your souls. You shall take the silver of the atonements from the children of Israel and utilize it for the work of the tent of meeting. It shall be a remembrance for the children of Israel before the Lord to atone for your souls. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, You shall make a washstand of copper and its base of copper for washing, and you shall place it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and you shall put water therein. Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and feet from it. When they enter the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water, so that they will not die. Or when they approach the altar to serve, to make a fire offering rise up in smoke to the Lord, they shall wash their hands and feet, so that they shall not die. This shall be for them a perpetual statute for him and for his descendants for their generations. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, And you take for yourself spices of the finest sort, of pure myrrh, 500 shekel weights, of fragrant cinnamon, half of it 250 shekel weights, of fragrant cane, 250 shekel weights, and of cassia, 500 shekel weights, according to the holy shekel, and 1 hin of olive oil. You shall make this into an oil of holy anointment, a perfumed compound according to the art of a perfumer. It shall be an oil of holy anointment, and you shall anoint with it the tent of meeting and the ark of testimony, the table and all its implements, the menorah and its implements, the altar of incense, the altar of the burnt offering and all its implements, the washstand and its base. And you shall sanctify them so that they become a holy of holies. Whatever touches them shall become holy. And with it you shall anoint Aaron and his sons and sanctify them to serve me as Kohanim. And to the children of Israel you shall speak, saying, This shall be oil of holy anointment for me for your generations. It shall not be poured upon human flesh, and according to its formula you shall not make anything like it. It is holy, it shall be holy to you. Any person who compounds anything like it or puts any of it on an alien shall be cut off from his people. And the Lord said to Moshe, Take for yourselves aromatics, namely balsam, sap, onca, and galbanum, aromatics and pure frankincense. They shall be of equal weight. And you shall make it into incense, a compound according to the art of the perfumer, well blended, pure, holy. And you shall crush some of it very finely, and you shall set some of it before the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I will arrange meetings with you. It shall be to you a holy of holies. And the incense that you make, you shall not make for yourselves according to its formula. It shall be holy to you for the Lord. Any person who makes anything like it, to smell its fragrance, shall be cut off from his people. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah. And I have imbued him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with insight, with knowledge, and with talent for all manner of craftsmanship, to do master weaving, to work with gold, with silver, and with copper, with the craft of stones for setting, and with the craft of wood, to do every manner of work. And behold, with him I have placed Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and all the wise-hearted into whose hearts I have instilled wisdom, and they shall make everything I have commanded you. The tent of meeting and the ark for the testimony, as well as the cover that shall be upon it, all the implements of the tent, the table and its implements, the pure menorah and its implements, the altar of incense, the altar for the burnt offering and all its implements, the washstand and its base, the meshwork garments, the holy garments for Aaron the Kohen, the garments of his sons in which to serve as Kohanim, the anointing oil and the incense for the holy. In complete accordance with everything I have commanded you, they shall do. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, And you speak to the children of Israel, and say, Only keep my Shabbatot, for it is a sign between me and you for your generations, to know that I, the Lord, make you holy. Therefore keep Shabbat, for it is a sacred thing for you. Those who desecrate it shall be put to death, for whoever performs work on it, that soul will be cut off from the midst of its people. 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day is a Shabbat of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever performs work on Shabbat shall be put to death. Thus shall the children of Israel observe Shabbat, to make Shabbat throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is forever a sign that in 6 days the Lord created the heaven and the earth, and on the seventh day Adonai ceased and rested. When Adonai had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, Adonai gave Moshe the 2 tablets of the testimony, stone tablets written with the finger of God. When the people saw that Moshe was late in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron, and they said to him, "Come on, make us deities that will go before us, because this man Moshe, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him." Aaron said to him, "Remove the golden earrings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them those earrings to me." And all the people stripped themselves of the golden earrings that were on their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took them from their hands, fashioned it with an engraving tool, and made it into a molten calf, upon which they said, "These are your deities, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of it, and Aaron proclaimed and said, "Mañana shall be a festival to the Lord." On the next day they arose early, offered up burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink, and they got up to make merry. And the Lord said to Moshe, "Go, descend, for your people that you have brought up from the land of Egypt have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned away from the path that I have commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf, and they have prostrated themselves before it, slaughtered sacrifices to it, and said, 'These are your deities, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moshe, 'I have seen this people, and behold, they are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone, and my anger will be kindled against them, so that I will annihilate them, and I will make you into a great nation.'" Moshe pleaded before the Lord his God and said, "Why, O Lord, should your anger be kindled against your people, whom you have brought up from the land of Egypt with great power and with a strong hand? Why should the Egyptians say, 'Adonai brought them out with evil intent to kill them in the mountains and to annihilate them from upon the face of the earth'? Retreat from the heat of your anger and can reconsider the evil intended for your people. Remember Abraham, Yitzhak, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your very self, and to whom you said, 'I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens,' and all this land which I said that I would give to your seed, they shall keep it as their possession forever." The Lord then reconsidered the evil Adonai had said Adonai would do to Adonai's people. Now Moshe turned and went down from the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets inscribed from both their sides. On one side and on the other side they were inscribed. Now the tablets were God's work, and the inscription was God's inscription, engraved on the tablets. When Yehoshua heard the voice of the people and their shouting, he said to Moshe, "There is a voice of battle in the camp." But Moshe said, "It is neither a voice shouting victory nor a voice shouting defeat. A voice of blasphemy I hear." Now it came to pass, when he drew closer to the camp and saw the calf and the dances, that Moshe's anger was kindled, and he flung the tablets from his hands, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf they had made, burned it in fire, ground it into fine powder, scattered it upon the surface of the water, and gave it to the children of Israel to drink. Moshe said to Aaron, What did this people do to you, that you brought such a grave sin upon them?" Aaron replied, "Let not my master's anger grow hot. You know the people, that they are disposed towards evil. They said to me, 'Make us deities who will go before us,' because this man Moshe, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." I said to them, "Who has gold?" So they took the gold off and gave it to me. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. And Moshe saw the people, that they were exposed, for Aaron had exposed them to be disgraced before their adversaries. So Moshe stood in the gate of the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, let him come to me." And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. He said to them, "So said the Lord, the God of Israel, let every man place his sword upon his thigh and pass back and forth from one gate to the other in the camp, and let every man kill his brother, every man his friend, every man his kinsman." The sons of Levi did according to Moshe's word. On that day some 3,000 men fell from amongst the people. And Moshe said, "Initiate yourselves today for the Lord, for each man with his son and with his brother, so that Adonai may bestow a blessing upon you this day." It came to pass on the next day that Moshe said to the people, "You have committed a grave sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I will obtain atonement for your sin." And Moshe returned to the Lord and said, "Please, this people has committed a grave sin. They have made themselves a deity of gold. And now if you forgive their sin, but if not, erase me now from your book which you have written." And the Lord said to Moshe, "Whoever has sinned against me, him I will erase from my book." And now go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel will go before you. But on the day I make an accounting of sins upon them, I will bring their sin to account against them. Then the Lord struck the people with a plague because they had made the calf that Aaron had made. The Lord spoke to Moshe, Go, ascend from here, you and the people you have brought up from the land of Egypt, to the land that I swore to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey, because I will not go up in your midst, since you are a stiff-necked people, lest I destroy you on the way. When the people heard this bad news, they grieved, and no one put on his finery. And the Lord said to Moshe, Say to the children of Israel, You are a stiff-necked people. If I go up into your midst for one moment, I will destroy you. But now leave off your finery, and I will know what to do to you. So the children of Israel divested themselves of their finery from Mount Horeb. And Moshe took the tent and pitched it for himself outside the camp, distancing it from the camp. And he called it the tent of meeting, and it would be that anyone seeking the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. And it would be that when Moshe would go out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand, each one at the entrance of his tent, and they would gaze after Moshe until he went into the tent. And it would be that when Moshe entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and Adonai would speak with Moshe. When all the people would see the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and prostrate themselves, each one at the entrance of his tent. Then the Lord would speak to Moshe face to face, as a man would speak to his companion, and he would return to the camp, but his attendant Yehoshua the son of Nun, a lad, would not depart from the tent. Moshe said to the Lord, Look, you say to me, Bring this people up, but you have not informed me whom you will send with me. And you said, I have known you by name, and you also have found favor in my eyes. And now if I have indeed found favor in your eyes, pray let me know your ways, that I may know you, so that I may find favor in your eyes, and consider that this nation is your people. So Adonai said, My presence will go, and I will give you rest. And he said to Adonai, If your presence does not go with us, do not take us up from here. For how then will it be known that I have found favor in your eyes, I and your people? Is it not in that you will go with us? Then I and your people will be distinguished from every other nation on the face of the earth. And the Lord said to Moshe, Even this thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my eyes, and I have known you by name. And he said, Show me now your glory. Adonai said, I will let all my benevolence pass before you. I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you, and I will favor when I wish to favor, and I will have compassion when I wish to have compassion. And Adonai said, You will not be able to see my face, for man shall not see me and live. And the Lord said, Behold, there is a place with me, and you shall stand on the rock. And it shall be that when my glory passes by, I will place you into the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face shall not be seen. And the Lord said to Moshe, Hew for yourself 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will inscribe upon the tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. Be prepared for the Matan, and in the Matan you shall ascend Mount Sinai, and stand before me there on the top of the mountain. No one shall ascend with you, neither shall anyone be seen anywhere on the mountain, neither shall the sheep and the cattle graze facing that mountain. So he, Moshe, hewed 2 stone tablets like the first ones. And Moshe arose early in the Matan and ascended Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him. And he took 2 stone tablets in his hand. And the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there. And Adonai called out in the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, Lord, Lord, benevolent God, who is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abundant in loving kindness and truth, preserving loving kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity and rebellion and sin. Yet Adonai does not completely clear of sin. Adonai visits the iniquity of parents on children and children's children, to the 3rd and 4th generations. And Moshe hastened, bowed his head to the ground, and prostrated himself, and said, If I have now found favor in your eyes, O Lord, let the Lord go now in your midst, even if they are a stiff-necked people, and you shall forgive our iniquity and our sin, and thus secure us as your possession. And Adonai said, Behold, I will form a covenant in the presence of all your people. I will make distinctions such as have not been created upon all the earth, and amongst all the nations, and all the people in whose midst you are shall see the work of the Lord, how awe-inspiring it is, that which I will perform with you. Keep carefully what I am commanding you today. Lo, I will drive out from before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Perizzites, the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites. Beware lest you form a covenant with the inhabitants of the land into which you are coming, lest it become a snare in your midst. But you shall demolish their altars, shatter their monuments, and cut down their sacred trees. For you shall not prostrate yourself before another deity, because the Lord, whose name is Jealous One, is a jealous God. Lest you form a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they, the Gentiles, go astray after their deities, and they offer sacrifices to their deities, and they invite you, and you eat of their slaughtering. And you take of their daughters for your sons, then their daughters will go astray after their deities, and lead your sons astray after their deities. You shall not make molten deities for yourself. The festival of unleavened cakes you shall keep. 7 days you shall eat unleavened cakes, which I have commanded you, at the appointed meeting time of the month of spring, for in the month of spring you went out of Egypt. All that opens the womb is mine, and all your livestock that bears a male by the emergence of ox or lamb. And a firstborn donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. If you do not redeem it, you shall decapitate it. Every firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you may work, and on the 7th day you shall rest in plowing, and in harvest you shall rest. And you shall make for yourself a festival of weeks, the first of the wheat harvest, and the festival of the ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times during the year shall all your males appear directly before the Master, the Lord, the God of Israel. When I drive out nations from before you, and I widen your border, no one will covet your land when you go up, to appear before the Lord your God 3 times each year. You shall not slaughter or sprinkle the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, and the offering of the Pesach feast shall not remain overnight until the Matan. The choices of the first of your soil you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. The Lord said to Moshe, inscribe these words for yourself, for according to these words I have formed a covenant with you and with Israel. He was there with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water. And Adonai inscribed upon the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. And it came to pass when Moshe descended from Mount Sinai, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in Moshe's hand, when he descended from the mountain, and Moshe did not know that the skin of his face had become radiant, whilst Adonai had spoken with him. That Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moshe, and behold, the skin of his face had become radiant, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moshe called to them, and Aaron and all the princes of the community returned to him, and Moshe would speak to them. Afterwards all the children of Israel would draw near, and he would command them everything that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moshe had finished speaking with them, he placed a covering over his face. When Moshe would come before the Lord to speak with Adonai, he would remove the covering until he left. Then he would leave and speak to the children of Israel what he would be commanded. Then the children of Israel would see Moshe's face, that the skin of Moshe's face had become radiant, and then Moshe would replace the covering over his face until he would come again to speak with Adonai. The Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, número 3. Arjuna said, if you hold, O Janardana, that knowledge is superior to action, why then, O Kasava, do you engage me in this terrible action? With these apparently contradictory words, you seem to confuse my understanding. Therefore tell me definitely that one thing by which I shall reach the highest goal. Sri Krishna said, even of yore, O sinless one, a twofold devotion was taught by me to the world, devotion to knowledge for the contemplative, and devotion to work for the active. Not by merely abstaining from action does a man reach the state of actionlessness, nor by mere renunciation does he arrive at perfection. Verily, no one can remain even for an instant without doing work, for driven by the gunas born of Prakriti, everyone is made to act in spite of himself. He who restrains his organs of action but continues to dwell in his mind on the objects of the senses deludes himself and is called a hypocrite. But he who restrains his senses with his mind and directs his organs of action to work with no feeling of attachment, he, O Arjuna, is indeed superior. Do your allotted action, for action is superior to inaction. and even the bare maintenance of your body will not be possible if you remain inactive. The world becomes bound by action unless it be done for the sake of sacrifice. Therefore, son of Kunti, give up attachment and do your work for the sake of the Lord. The Prajapati in the beginning created men together with sacrifice and said, By this shall you multiply. Let this be the cow of plenty and yield unto you the milk of your desire. With sacrifice you shall nourish the angels, and may the angels nourish you. Thus, nourishing one another, you will obtain the highest benevolence. The angels nourished by sacrifice will bestow on you the enjoyments you desire. He is verily a thief who enjoys the things that they give without offering to them anything in return. Benevolent men who eat the remnant of the sacrifice are freed from all sins, but wicked men who cook food only for themselves verily eat sin. Food from all creatures are born, from rain food is produced. From food all creatures are born, from rain food is produced. From sacrifice comes rain, sacrifice is born of action. Know that action arises from the Vedas, and the Vedas from the imperishable. Therefore the all-pervading Vedas ever rest in sacrifice. Thus was the wheel set in motion, and he who does not follow it, but takes delight in the senses and lives in sin, O Partha, lives in vain. But verily the man who rejoices in the self and is satisfied with the self, and is content in the self alone, he has nothing for which he should work. He has no object to gain by what he does in this world, nor any to lose by what he leaves undone. Nor is there anyone amongst all beings on whom he need depend for any object. Therefore always do without attachment the work you have to do. For a man who does his work without attachment attains the supreme. Verily by action alone men like Janaka attained perfection. Further you should perform work with a view to guiding people along the right path. Whatever a great man does, that others follow. Whatever he sets up as a standard, that the world follows. I have, O Partha, no duty. There is nothing in the three worlds that I have not gained, and nothing that I have to gain. Yet I continue to work. For should I not ever engage unwearied in action, O Partha, men would in every way follow in my wake. If I should cease to work, these worlds would perish. I should cause the mixture of castes and destroy all these creatures. As the ignorant act attached to the work, O Bharata, so should an enlightened man act, but without attachment, in order that he may set people on the right path. Let no enlightened man unsettle the understanding of the ignorant, who are attached to action. He should engage them in action, himself performing it with devotion. All work is performed by the gunas of Prakriti, but he whose mind is deluded by egotism thinks, I am the doer. But, O mighty Arjuna, he who knows the truth about the gunas and action, and what is distinct from them, holds himself unattached, perceiving that it is the gunas that are occupied with the gunas. Those who are deluded by the gunas of Prakriti attach themselves to the actions that those gunas prompt. Nevertheless, let no man who knows the whole unsettle the minds of the dull-witted, who know only a part. Surrendering all action to me, with mind intent on the self, freeing yourself from longing and selfishness, fight unperturbed by grief. Those who full of faith ever follow this teaching of mine and do not carp at me, they too are released from their works. But those who carp at my teaching and practice it not, know that such senseless men, blind to all wisdom, are doomed to destruction. Even the man of knowledge acts in accordance with his own nature. All beings follow their nature. What can restraint do? The love and hatred that the senses feel for their objects are inevitable, but let no one come under their sway, for they are one's enemies. Better is one's own dharma, though imperfectly performed, than the dharma of another well performed. Better is death in the doing of one's own dharma. The dharma of another is fraught with peril. Arjuna said, But under what compulsion does a man commit sin, O Varshnaya, in spite of himself and driven, as it were, by force? Sri Krishna said, It is desire, it is wrath, which springs from Rajas. Know that this is our enemy here, all devouring and the cause of all sin. As fire is concealed by smoke, as a mirror by dust, as an unborn babe by the womb, so is knowledge concealed by ignorance. Enveloped is knowledge, O son of Kunti, by the insatiable fire of desire, which is the constant foe of the wise. The senses, the mind, and the understanding are said to be its seat, though through these it veils knowledge and deludes the embodied soul. Therefore, O master of the Bharatas, control your senses at the outset, and slay this foul destroyer of knowledge and realization. The senses are superior, they say, Superior to the senses is the mind. Superior to the mind is the understanding. Superior to the understanding is Brahman. Therefore, know Brahman, who is superior to the understanding. Control the self by the self, and destroy, O mighty Arjuna, the enemy who comes in the guise of desire and is hard to overcome. The Digha Nikaya, the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, número 16, chapter 1. Thus I heard. At one time the Gracious One was living near Rajagaha on the Vulture's Peak mountain. Now at that time the Magadhan king Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, had a desire to attack the Vajrayans. He said this: I will annihilate these Vajrayans who are so successful, so powerful. I will destroy the Vajrayans. I will bring about the downfall and destruction of the Vajrayans. Then the Magadhan king Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, addressed the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, saying, Go, Brahman, and approach the Gracious One, and after approaching, honor the Gracious One's feet in my name, and ask whether he is free from sickness, free from illness, in benevolent health, and living comfortably. And say, the Magadhan King Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, reverend sir, honors with his head at the Gracious One's feet, and asks whether you are free from sickness, free from illness, in benevolent health, and living comfortably. And say this: the Magadhan King Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, reverend sir, desires to attack the Vajrayans. He says this: I will annihilate these Vajrayans who are so successful, so powerful. I will destroy the Vajrayans. I will bring about the downfall and destruction of the Vajrayans. And just what the Gracious One says to you after learning it, well, you must inform me, for the realized ones do not speak falsely. Very well, sir. Very well, dear sir. And the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, after replying to the Magadhan king Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, and having many great and august vehicles prepared, and mounting those great and august vehicles, departed with those great and august vehicles from Rajagaha. After approaching by vehicle to the Vulture's Peak mountain, as distant as the ground for vehicles would allow, and descending from the vehicles, he approached the Gracious One by foot, and after approaching he exchanged greetings with the Gracious One, and after exchanging courteous talk and greetings, he sat down on one side. While sitting on one side, the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, said this to the Gracious One: the Magadhan king Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, dear Gautama, honors with his head at dear Gautama's feet, and asks whether you are free from sickness, free from illness, in benevolent health, and living comfortably. The Magadhan king Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, dear Gautama, desires to attack the Vajrayans. He says this: I will annihilate these Vajrayans who are so successful, so powerful. I will destroy the Vajrayans. I will bring about the downfall and destruction of the Vajrayans. Now at that time the Venerable Ananda stood behind the Gracious One, fanning the Gracious One. Then the Gracious One addressed Venerable Ananda, saying, Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans assemble regularly and assemble frequently? I have heard this, reverend sir. The Vajrayans assemble regularly and assemble frequently. For as long, Ananda, as the Vajrayans will assemble regularly and assemble frequently, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected, for the Vajrayans not decline. Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans assemble unanimously, rise unanimously, and carry out their Vajrayan duties unanimously? I have heard this, reverend sir, that the Vajrayans assemble unanimously, rise unanimously, and carry out their Vajrayan duties unanimously. For as long as, Ananda, as the Vajrayans will assemble unanimously, rise unanimously, and carry out their Vajrayan duties unanimously, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected, for the Vajrayans not decline. Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans do not establish new laws that were not established, or cut off old laws that were established, and carry on with such laws as if were accepted in the ancient Vajrayan constitution. I have heard this, reverend sir. the Vajrayans do not establish new laws that were not established or cut off old laws that were established, and they carry on with such laws as were accepted in the ancient Vajrayan constitution. For as long, Ananda, as the Vajrayans do not establish new laws that were not established or cut off old laws that were established, and they carry on with such laws as were accepted in the ancient Vajrayan constitution, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected for the Vajrayans, not decline. Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans honor the elders of the Vajrayans, respect, revere, honor, and think them worth listening to? I've heard this, Reverend Sir. The Vajrayans honor the elders of the Vajrayans, respect, revere, honor, and think of them worth listening to. For as long, Ananda, as the Vajrayans will honor the elders of the Vajrayans, respect, revere, honor, and think of them worth listening to, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected for the Vajrayans, not decline. Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans do not coerce and force their women and girls to dwell with them against their will? I've heard this, Reverend Sir. The Vajrayans do not coerce and force their women and girls to dwell with them after their will. For as long, Ananda, as the Vajrayans will not coerce and force their women and girls to dwell with them against their will, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected for the Vajrayans not decline. Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans honor the Vajrayan shrines amongst the Vajrayans, both within and without the city, respect, revere, and honor them, and do not allow the righteous sacrifices that were formerly made to be neglected? I have heard this, Reverend Sir. The Vajrayans honor the Vajrayan shrines amongst the Vajrayans, both within and without the city, respect, revere, and honor them, and do not allow the righteous sacrifices that were formerly made to be neglected. For as long, Ananda, as the Vajrayans will honor the Vajrayan shrines amongst the Vajrayans, both within and without the city, respect, revere, and honor them, and do not allow the righteous sacrifices that were formerly made, to be neglected, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected for the Vajrayans, not decline. Have you heard, Ananda, the Vajrayans have made benevolent arrangements in regard to the lawful protection, safety, and guarding of the worthy ones, so that worthy ones in the future can enter the realm, and having entered the worthy ones can live comfortably in the realm. I have heard this, Reverend Sir. The Vajrayans have made benevolent arrangements in regard to the lawful protection, safety, and guarding of the worthy ones, and that the worthy ones in the future can enter the realm, and having entered the worthy realms, can live comfortably in the realm. For as long, Ananda, as the Vajrayans will make benevolent arrangements in regard to the lawful protection, safety, and guarding of the worthy ones, and that the worthy ones in the future can enter the realm, and having entered the worthy ones can live comfortably in the realm, surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected for the Vajrayans, not decline. When the Gracious One addressed the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, saying, Then the Gracious One addressed the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, saying, At one time, Brahmin, I was living near Vasali, near the Sarandada shrine, and there I taught the Vajrayans these 7 things which prevent decline. For as long, Brahmin, as the Vajrayans maintain these 7 things which prevent decline, and the Vajrayans agree with these 7 things which prevent decline, surely growth, Brahmin, is to be expected for the Vajrayans, not decline. After this was said, the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, addressed the Gracious One, saying, If the Vajrayans, dear Gotama, were endowed with even one or the other of these 7 great things which prevent decline, surely growth is to be expected, not decline. What to say about having 7 things which prevent decline? The Vajrayans cannot be overcome, dear Gautama, by the Magadhan king Ajatasattu, the son of Lady Wisdom, by war, but only through diplomacy and through the breaking of an alliance. And now, dear Gautama, we shall go as we have many duties, and there is much which ought to be done. Now is the time, Brahmin, for whatever you are thinking. Then the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, after greatly rejoicing and gladly receiving the word of the Gracious One, rose from his seat and departed. Then the Gracious One, not long after the Magadhan chief minister, the Brahmin Vasakara, had gone, addressed Venerable Ananda, saying, Go, Ananda, and whatever monks there are living in dependence on Rajagaha, assemble them in the attendance hall. Very well, Reverend Sir, said Venerable Ananda, and after replying to the Gracious One and assembling whatever monks there were living in dependence on Rajagaha in the attendance hall, He approached the Gracious One, and after approaching and honoring the Gracious One, he stood on one side. While standing on one side, Venerable Ananda said this to the Gracious One. The community of the Sangha of monks have assembled, Reverend Sir. Now is the time, Gracious One, for whatever you are thinking. Then the Gracious One, after arising from his seat, approached the attendance hall, and after approaching, he sat down on the prepared seat. While sitting, the Gracious One addressed the monks, saying, I will teach you 7 things which prevent decline. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Very well, Reverend Sir, those monks replied to the Gracious One, and the Gracious One said this. For as long monks as the monks will assemble regularly and assemble frequently, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will assemble unanimously, rise unanimously, and carry out their community duties unanimously, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks do not establish new laws that were not established, or cut off old laws that were established, and they carry on with such training rules as have been accepted, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will honor the elder monks, those of long standing, a long time gone forth, the fars of the community, the leaders of the community, respect, revere, worship, and think them worth listening to, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will not come under the influence of craving which has arisen for continued existence, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will have desire for forest dwellings, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks individually will attend to the ways of mindfulness, so that their fellow celibates who are well behaved in the future can come, and having come to their fellow celibates who are well behaved can live comfortably, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will maintain these 7 things which prevent decline, and the monks will agree with these 7 things that which prevent decline, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. I will teach you a further 7 things which prevent decline. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Very well, Reverend Sir, those monks replied to the Gracious One, and the Gracious One said this. For as long monks as the monks are not devoted to the pleasure in work, the delight in work, and are not attached to work, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks are not devoted to the pleasure in speech, the delight in speech, and are not attached to speech, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks are not devoted to the pleasure in sleep, the delight in sleep, and are not attached to sleep, but surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks are not devoted to the pleasure of company, the delight in company, and are not attached to company, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks do not have evil wishes, do not go under the influence of evil wishes, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks do not have wicked friends, do not have wicked companions, do not have wicked comrades, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks do not achieve only mundane or incomplete attainment, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will maintain these 7 things which prevent decline, and the monks will agree with these 7 things which prevent decline, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. And I will teach you a further 7 things which prevent decline. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Very well, Reverend Sir, those monks replied to the Gracious One, and the Gracious One said this. For as long monks as the monks will have faith, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will have a conscientious mind, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will have a sense of shame, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will be learned, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will be strenuous, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will attain to mindfulness, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long monks as the monks will possess wisdom, surely growth monks is to be expected, for the monks not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will maintain these 7 things which prevent decline, and the monks will agree with these 7 things which prevent decline, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. I will teach you a further 7 things which prevent decline. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Very well, reverend sir, those monks replied to the gracious one, and the gracious one said this. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is mindfulness, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is investigation of the nature of things, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is energy, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is rapture, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is calm, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is concentration, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the factor of perfect awakening, that is equanimity, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will maintain these 7 things which prevent decline, and the monks will again with these 7 things which prevent decline, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. I will teach you a further 7 things which prevent decline. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Very well, reverend sir, those monks replied to the gracious one, and the gracious one said this. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of impermanence, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of non-self, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of the unattractive, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of danger, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of giving up, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of dispassion, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will develop the perception of cessation, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will maintain these 7 things which prevent decline, and the monks will agree with these 7 things which prevent decline, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. I will teach you a further 6 things which prevent decline. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Very well, reverend sir, those monks replied to the gracious one, and the gracious one said this. For as long, monks, as the monks with friendly actions by way of the body will serve their fellow celibates both in public and in private, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, and not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will with friendly actions by way of speech will serve their fellow celibates both in public and in private, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks with friendly actions by way of the mind will serve their fellow celibates both in the public and private, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks in regard to those righteous gains received in accordance with the teaching, whatever amount has been reached in the bowl, will divide and share such gains with those who are virtuous fellow celibates and share them in common, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks are endowed with those virtues which are unbroken, faultless, unspotted, unblemished, productive of freedom, praised by the wise, not clung to leading to concentration, and will live endowed with virtue amongst their fellow celibates, who themselves possess such virtue, both in public and in private, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not to decline. For as long, monks, as the monks are endowed with that which is Aryan view, which leads to the complete destruction of the suffering of one who has thus and will live endowed with right view amongst those who themselves possess sure right view, both in public and in private, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. For as long, monks, as the monks will maintain these 6 things which prevent decline, and the monks will agree with the 6 things which prevent decline, surely growth, monks, is to be expected for the monks, not decline. There also the gracious one, whilst living near Rajagaha on the Vulture's Peak mountain, spoke frequently to the monks about the teaching, saying, such as virtue, such as concentration, such as wisdom. When virtue is well developed, it yields great fruit and brings great advantages in regard to concentration. When concentration is well developed, it yields great fruit and brings great advantages in regard to wisdom. When wisdom is well developed, the mind is completely liberated from the pollutants, that is to say, the pollutant of sensuality, the pollutant of craving, and the continued existence, the pollutant of ignorance. The story of the Tathagata. Then the gracious one, after living near Rajagaha for as long as he liked, addressed Venerable saying, Come, Ananda, let us approach Ambalatika. Very well, Reverend Sir, Venerable Nanda replied to the gracious one. Then the gracious one, together with a great sangha of monks, arrived at Ambalatika. There the gracious one lived near Ambalatika in the king's rest house. There also the gracious one, whilst living in Ambalatika in the king's rest house, spoke frequently to the monks about the teaching, saying, such as virtue, such as concentration, such as wisdom. When virtue is well developed, it yields great fruit and brings great advantages and reward. In regard to concentration, when concentration is well developed, it yields great fruits and brings great advantages and reward to wisdom. When wisdom is well developed, the mind is completely liberated from the pollutants, that is to say, the pollutant of sensuality, the pollutant of craving for continued existence, the pollutant of ignorance. Then the gracious one, after living near Ambalatika for as long as he liked, addressed Venerable Ananda, saying, Come, Ananda, let us approach Nalanda. Very well, sir, Reverend Sir, Venerable Ananda replied to the gracious one. Then the gracious one, together with a great sangha of monks, arrived at Nalanda. There the gracious one lived near Nalanda in Pavarika's mango wood. Then Venerable Sariputta approached the gracious one, and after approaching and worshipping and honoring the gracious one, he sat down on one side. While sitting on one side, Venerable Sariputta said this to the gracious one. I have confidence, Reverend Sir, in the gracious one in this way, that neither in the past, the future, or at present in any is there found another ascetic or Brahmin who has further deep knowledge in regard to perfect awakening than the gracious one. You have spoken this great and imposing speech, Sariputta, a definite, well-grasped lion's roar that was roared, saying, I have confidence, Reverend Sir, in the gracious one in this way, that neither in the past, the future, or at present is there found another ascetic or Brahmin who has further deep knowledge in regard to perfect awakening than the gracious one. But have you, Sariputta, understood those who in past times were worthy and perfect Sambuddhas, and known with your mind the minds of those gracious ones? Or that those gracious ones had such and such virtues, those gracious ones had such and such qualities, those gracious ones had such and such wisdom, those gracious ones had such and such lifestyles, those gracious ones had such and such liberations? No, Reverend Sir. But have you, Sariputta, understood those who in the former times will be worthy and perfect Sambuddhas, and know with your mind the minds of those gracious ones? Or that those gracious ones will have such and such virtues, those gracious ones will have such and such qualities. Thus, gracious ones will have such and such wisdom, those gracious ones will have such and such lifestyles. Thus, those gracious ones will have such and such liberations. No, Reverend Sir. But have you understood I, who am at present a worthy and perfect Sambuddha, and known with your mind my mind? Or that the gracious one has such and such virtues, the gracious one has such and such qualities, the gracious one has such and such wisdom, the gracious one has such and such a lifestyle, the gracious one has such and such a liberation? No, Reverend Sir. Here then, Sariputta, in regard to those past, future, and present worthy and perfect Sambuddhas, you have no full and exact knowledge with your own mind. Then how is it, Sariputta, at present that you have spoken such a great and imposing speech, a definite, well-grasped lion's roar that was roared, saying, I have confidence, Reverend Sir, in the gracious one in this way, that neither in the past, the future, or at present is there found another ascetic or Brahmin who has further deep knowledge in regard to perfect awakening than the gracious one? I do not, Reverend Sir, in regard to those past, future, and present worthy and some perfect Sambuddhas have full and exact knowledge with my own mind. However, I understand what I said is in the conformity with the teaching. It is like a king's city, Reverend Sir, near the border areas, having strong foundations, strong walls and gateways, and a single door, and there is a watchman wise, accomplished, and intelligent, warding off those unknown, and letting through those well known. Whilst going around the road on inspection through the whole city of that city, he may not see such fissures in the wall or openings in the wall that even a cat would go through. It may be so, but he knows. Whatever grosser beings enter or depart from this city, all of them surely enter or depart through this door. Similarly, Reverend Sir, I understand it is in conformity with the teaching that whoever, Reverend Sir, in the past times are worthy ones, perfect Sambuddhas, all those gracious ones, after giving up the 5 hindrances, have penetrated with wisdom the corruptions of the mind that make one feeble, have established their minds in the 4 ways of attending to mindfulness, and after developing just as it is in the 7 factors of awakening, have awakened to the unsurpassed and perfect awakening. That whoever, Reverend Sir, in the future times are worthy ones, perfect Sambuddhas, all those gracious ones, after giving up the 5 hindrances and penetrating with him the corruptions of the mind that make one feeble, and establishing their minds in the 4 ways of attending to mindfulness, and developing just as it is the 7 factors of awakening, will awaken to the unsurpassed and perfecting awakening. And the gracious one, Reverend Sir, in the present time, the worthy one, the perfect Sambuddha, also after giving up the 5 hindrances, has penetrated with wisdom the corruptions of the mind that make one feeble, has understood his mind in the 4 ways of attending to mindfulness, and after developing just as it is the 7 factors of awakening, has awoken to the unsurpassed and perfect awakening. There also, the gracious one, whilst living near Nalanda in Pavarika's mango grove, spoke frequently to the monks about the teaching, saying, such as virtue, such as concentration, such as wisdom. When virtue is well developed, it yields great fruit and brings great advantages in regard to concentration. When concentration is well developed, it yields great fruit and brings great advantages in regard to wisdom. When wisdom is well developed, the mind is completely liberated from the pollutants, that is to say, the pollutant of sensuality, the pollutant of craving for continued existence, the pollutant of ignorance. Then the gracious one, after living near Nalanda for as long as he liked, addressed Venerable Ananda, saying, Come, Ananda, let us approach Pataligama. Very well, Reverend Sir, Venerable Ananda replied to the gracious one. Then the gracious one, together with a great company of monks, arrived at Pataligama. The laymen of Pataligama heard the gracious one, it seems, had reached Pataligama. Then the laymen of Pataligama approached the gracious one, and after approaching and honoring the gracious one, they sat down on one side. While sitting on one side, the laymen of Pataligama said this to the gracious one. May the gracious one consent, Reverend Sir, to stay in our rest house. The gracious one consented by maintaining silence. Then the laymen of Pataligama, having understood the gracious one's consent, after rising from their seats, honoring and circumambulating the gracious one, approached the rest house, and after approaching and spreading the mats so that the rest house was spread all over, and preparing the seat, setting up the water pot, and lighting the oil lamp, they approached the gracious one, and after approaching and honoring the gracious one, they stood on one side. While standing on one side, the laymen of Pataligama said this to the gracious one. The rest house is spread with mats all over. Reverend Sir, the seats are prepared, the water pot is set up, and the oil lamp is lit. Now is the time, Reverend Sir, for whatever the gracious one is thinking. Then the gracious one, having dressed in the evening time, after picking up his bowl and robe, together with the sangha of monks, approached the rest house, and after approaching, washing his feet and entering the rest house, he sat down near to the middle pillar, facing the east, and the sangha of monks, after washing their feet and entering the rest house, sat down beside the gracious one near the west wall, facing the east, having the gracious one in front of them. Also the laymen of Pataligama, after washing their feet and entering the rest house, sat down in front of the gracious one near the east wall, facing the west, having the gracious one in front of them. Then the gracious one addressed the laymen of Pataligama, saying, There are these 5 dangers, householders, for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. What are the 5? Uno, here, householders, one lacking in virtue, one who has lost his virtue because of being heedless, undergoes a great loss of riches. This is the first danger, for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. Further, householders, for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue, a bad report goes round. This is the second danger, for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. Further, householders, one lacking in virtue, one who has lost his virtue, whatever assembly he approaches, whether an assembly of nobles, or an assembly of Brahmins, or an assembly of householders, or an assembly of ascetics, he approaches without confidence, but with confusion. This is the third danger for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. Further, householders, one lacking in virtue, one who has lost his virtue, dies bewildered. This is the fourth danger for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. Further, householders, one lacking in virtue, one who has lost his virtue, at the breakup of the body after death, arises in the lower world, in an unfortunate destiny, in the fall, in the nether regions. This is the fifth danger for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. These are the 5 dangers, householders, for one lacking in virtue, for one who has lost his virtue. There are these 5 advantages, householders, for one who is virtuous, for one accomplished in virtue. What are the 5? Herein, householders, one who is virtuous, one accomplished in virtue, because of being heedful, obtains a great mass of riches. This is the first advantage for one who is virtuous, for one accomplished in virtue. Further, householders, one who is virtuous, of one accomplished in virtue, a benevolent report goes round. This is the second advantage for one who is virtuous, one who accomplished in virtue. Further, householders, one who is virtuous, one accomplished in virtue, whatever assembly he approaches, whether an assembly of nobles, or an assembly of Brahmins, or an assembly of householders, or an assembly of ascetics, approaches with confidence, without confusion. This is the third advantage for one who is virtuous, for one accomplished in virtue. Further, householders, one who is virtuous, one accomplished in virtue, dies without bewilderment. This is the fourth advantage for one who is virtuous, for one accomplished in virtue. Further, householders, one who is virtuous, one accomplished in virtue, and at the breakup of the body after death, arises after a fortunate destiny in a heavenly world. This is the fifth advantage for one who is virtuous, for one accomplished in virtue. These are the 5 advantages, householders, for one who is virtuous, for one accomplished in virtue. Then the gracious one, after instructing, rousing, enthusing, and cheering the laymen of Pathalagama for most of the night with a talk about the teaching, dismissed them, saying, "The night has passed, householders. Now is the time for whatever you are thinking." "Very well, reverend sir," said those laymen of Pathalagama, and after replying to the gracious one, rising from their seats, honoring and circumambulating the gracious one, went away. Then the gracious one, not long after the laymen of Pathalagama had gone, entered an empty place. Now at that time, the Magadhan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara were building up a city at Pathalagama to ward off the Vajjayans. Then at that time, a great many divinities, thousands upon thousands, were taking possession of grounds at Pathalagama. In that place where the great divinities took possession of grounds, there the powerful rulers and great royal ministers' minds inclined to building up residences. In that place where the middling divinities took possession of grounds, there the middling rulers and middling royal ministers' minds inclined to building up residences. In that place where the lower divinities took possession of grounds, there the lower rulers and lower royal ministers' minds inclined to building up residences. The gracious one saw with his divine eye, which is purified and surpasses that of normal men, that those divinities, thousands upon thousands, were taking possession of grounds at Pathalagama. Then towards the time of dawn, after having risen from his seat, the gracious one addressed Venerable Ananda, saying, "Nahu Ananda is building a city at Pathalagama. The Magadhan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara, reverend sir, are building up a city at Pathalagama to ward off the Vajjayans. It is just as though, Ananda, they are building after consulting with the Tavatimsa divinities. So, Ananda, are the Magadhan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara building up a city at Pathalagama to ward off the Vajjayans. Here, Ananda, I saw with my divine eye, which is purified and surpasses that of normal men, that a great many divinities, thousands upon thousands, were taking possession of grounds at Pathalagama. In that place where the great divinities took possession of grounds, there the master rulers and great royal ministers' minds inclined to building up residences. In that place where the middling divinities took possession of grounds, there the middling rulers and middling royal ministers' minds inclined to building up residences." In that place where the lower divinities took possession of grounds, there the lower rulers and lower royal ministers' minds inclined to building up residences. For as long, Ananda, as there is an Aryan sphere of influence, for as long as there is a trade, this basket opening Patalaputa will be the chief city. For Patalaputa, Ananda, there will be three dangers: from fire and from water and from the breaking of an alliance. Then the Magadan chief priests Sunita and Vasakara approached the gracious one, and after approaching, they exchanged greetings with the gracious one, and after exchanging courteous talk and greetings, they stood on one side. While standing on one side, the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara said this to the gracious one: May the dear Gautama consent to us offering him a meal today, together with the song of monks. The gracious one consented by maintaining silence. Then the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara, having understood the gracious one's consent, approached their own dwelling, and after approaching in their own dwellings, having had excellent foodstuffs made ready, had the time announced to the gracious one, saying, It is time, dear Gautama, the meal is ready. Then the gracious one, having addressed in the matan, after picking up his bowl and robe, together with the song of monks, approached the dwelling of the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara, and after approaching, he sat down on the prepared seat. Then the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara, with their own hands, served and satisfied the song of monks, with the Buddha at its head, with excellent foodstuffs. Then the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara, when the gracious one had eaten and washed his hand and bowl, having taken a low seat, sat down on one side. While sitting on one side, the gracious one rejoiced the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara with these verses: In that place where he makes his dwelling, having entertained the wise and virtuous here, the restrained who live by the spiritual life, he should dedicate a gift of merit to those divinities who were in that place. Honored, they pay honor; revered, they revere him. Thereafter, they have compassion on him, as a Moor on her own son. A man whom the divinities has compassion on always sees what is auspicious. Then the gracious one, after rejoicing the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara with these verses, after rising from his seat, went away. Now at that time the Magadan chief ministers Sunita and Vasakara were following close behind the gracious one, thinking, That gate by which the ascetic Gautama leaves will get the name the Gautama gate, and that ford by which he crosses the river Ganges will get the name the Gautama ford. Then that gate by which the gracious one left got the name the Gautama gate. Then the gracious one approached the river Ganges. Now at that time the river Ganges was full to the brim and could not be drunk from by crows perched on the bank. Some of the people were seeking boats, some were seeking floats, and some were binding rafts, desiring to go from this shore to the shore beyond. Then the gracious one, just as a strong man might stretch out a bent arm or bend in an outstretched arm, so did he vanish from the near bank of the river Ganges, and reappeared on the distant bank, together with the Sangha of monks. The gracious one saw those people, some seeking boats, some seeking floats, and some binding rafts, desiring to go from this shore to the shore beyond. Then the gracious one, having understood the significance of it on that occasion, uttered this exalted utterance: Those who cross over a sea or a river do so after making a bridge, and leaving the marshes behind. Whilst people are still binding together a raft, intelligent people have crossed over. Gospels, Mark 13-14. As Jesus was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings. Do you see all these great buildings? Replied Jesus. Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, Tell us, when will these things happen, and what will be the sign that they are all about to be fulfilled? Jesus said to them, Watch out that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and will deceive many. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places and famines. These are the beginnings of the birth pains. You must be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. On account of me, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them, and the gospel must first be preached to all nations. Whenever you are arrested and brought to trial, you do not worry beforehand about what to say. Just say whatever is given to you at that time, for it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and afar his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. Everyone will hate you because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down or enter the house or take anything out. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing Moors. Pray that this will not take place in winter, because those will be days of distress, unequaled from the beginning when God created the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If God had not cut short those days, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect for whom God has chosen, God has shortened them. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "Look, there he is," do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So be on your guard. I have told you everything ahead of time. But in those days following that distress, the soleil will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And he will send his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Creator. Be on guard, be alert. You do not know when that time will come. It's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows or at dawn. If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping. What I say to you, I say to everyone: watch. Now Pesach and the festival of unleavened bread were only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or the people may riot. Whilst he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for further than a year's wages, and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them at any time you want, but you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money, so he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, when it was customary to sacrifice the Pesach lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and make preparations for you to eat the Pesach?" So he sent 2 of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room, where I may eat the Pesach with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." The disciples left, went into the city, and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Pesach. When evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. Whilst they were reclining at the table, eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They were saddened, and one by one they said to him, "Surely you don't mean me." "It is one of the 12," he replied, "one who dips bread into the bowl with me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him, but woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." Whilst they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many," he said to them. "Truly I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the sovereignty of God." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. "You will all fall away," Jesus told them, "for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself would disown me 3 times." But Peter insisted emphatically, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the others said the same. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here whilst I pray." He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said to them. "Stay here and keep watch." Going a little further, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible the hour might pass from him. "Abba, Creator," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Simon," he said to Peter, "are you asleep? Couldn't you keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Once further he went away and prayed the same thing. When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. They did not know what to say to him. Returning the 3rd time, he said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough, the hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. The men seized Jesus and arrested him. Then one of those standing near drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. "Am I leading a rebellion," said Jesus, "that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled." Then everyone deserted him and fled. A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the teachers of the law came together. Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days will build another, not made with hands.' Yet even then their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, 'Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?' But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again the high priest asked him, 'Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?' 'I am,' said Jesus. 'And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven.' The high priest tore his clothes. 'Why do we need any further witnesses?' he asked. 'You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?' They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, 'Prophesy,' and the guards took him and beat him. Whilst Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. You also were with the Nazarene Jesus," she said. But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about," he said, and went out into the entryway. When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fellow is one of them." Again he denied it. After a little while, those standing near said to Peter, "Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." He began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately the rooster crowed the 2nd time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. The Quran, Surah Al-Hajj, 22. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. O mankind, fear your Lord, for the convulsion of the hour of judgment will be a thing terrible. The day ye shall see it, every mortal giving suck shall forget her suckling babe, and every pregnant female shall drop her load unformed. Thou shalt see mankind as in a drunken riot, yet not drunk, but dreadful will be the wrath of Allah. And yet amongst men there are such as dispute about Allah without knowledge, and follow every evil one obstinate in rebellion. About the evil one it is decreed that whoever turns to him for friendship, him will he lead astray, and he will guide him to the penalty of the fire. O mankind, if ye have a doubt about the resurrection, consider that we created you out of dust, then out of sperm, then out of a leech-like clot, then out of a segment of flesh, partly formed and partly unformed, in order that we may manifest our power to you, and we cause whom we will to rest in the wombs for an appointed term. Then do we bring you out as babes, then foster you, that ye may reach your age of full strength. And some of you are called to die, and some are sent back to the feeblest old age, so that they know nothing after having known much. And further, thou seest the earth barren and lifeless, but when we pour down rain on it, it is stirred to life, it swells, and it puts forth every kind of beautiful growth in pairs. This is so because Allah is the reality. It is Allah who gives life to the dead, and it is Allah who has power over all things. And verily the hour will come, there can be no doubt about it, or about the fact that Allah will raise up all who are in the graves. Yet there is amongst men such a one as disputes about Allah, without knowledge, without guidance, and without a book of enlightenment. Disdainfully bending his side in order to lead men astray from the path of Allah. For him there is disgrace in this life, and on the day of judgment we shall make him taste the penalty of burning fire. It will be said, this is because of the deeds which thy hands sent forth, for verily Allah is not unjust to Allah's servants. There are amongst men some who serve Allah as it were on the verge. If benevolence befalls them, they are therewith well content, but if a trial comes to them, they turn on their faces. They lose both this world and the hereafter. That is loss for all to see. They call on such deities besides Allah as can neither hurt nor benefit them, that is straying distantly indeed from the way. Perhaps they call on one whose hurt is nearer than his benefit. Evil indeed is the patron, and evil the companion or help. Verily Allah will admit those who believe and work righteous deeds to gardens beneath which rivers flow, for Allah carries out all that Allah plans. If any think that Allah will not help him, Allah's messenger, in this world and the hereafter, let him stretch out a rope to the ceiling and cut himself off. Then let him see whether his plan will remove that which enrages him. Thus have we sent down clear signs, and verily Allah doth guide whom Allah will. Those who believe in the Quran, those who follow the Jewish scriptures and the Sabians, Christians, Magians, and polytheists, Allah will judge between them on the day of judgment, for Allah is witness of all things. Seest thou not that to Allah bow down and worship all things that are in the heavens and on earth, the soleil, the moon, the stars, the hills, the trees, the animals, and a great number amongst mankind? But a great number are also such as are fit for punishment, and such as Allah shall disgrace. None can raise to honor, for Allah carries out all that Allah wills. These two antagonists dispute with each other about their Lord, but those who deny their Lord, for them will be cut out a garment of fire, over their heads will be poured out boiling water. With it will be scalded what is within their bodies as well as their skins. In addition, there will be maces of iron to punish them. Every time they wish to get away therefrom from anguish, they will be forced back therein, and it will be said, Taste ye the penalty of burning. Allah will admit those who believe and work righteous deeds to gardens beneath which rivers flow, and they shall be adorned therein with bracelets of gold and pearls, and their garments there will be of silk. For they have been guided in this life to the purest of speeches. They have been guided to the path of Allah, who is worthy of all praise. As to those who have rejected Allah and would keep back men from the way of Allah and from the sacred masjid which we have made open to all men, equal is the dweller there and the visitor from the country. And any whose purpose therein is profanity or wrongdoing, them will we cause to taste of a most grievous penalty. Behold, we gave the sight to Abraham of the sacred house, saying, Associate not anything in worship with me, and sanctify my house for those who compass it round, or stand up, or bow, or prostrate themselves therein in prayer. And proclaim the pilgrimage amongst men. They will come to thee on foot and mounted on every kind of camel, lean on account of journeys through deep and distant mountain highways, that they may witness the benefits provided for them and celebrate the name of Allah through the days appointed over the cattle which Allah has provided for them for sacrifice. Then eat ye thereof and feed the distressed ones in want. Then let them complete the rites prescribed for them, perform their vows, and again circumambulate the ancient house. Such is the pilgrimage. Whoever honors the sacred rites of Allah, for him it is benevolent in the sight of his Lord. Lawful to you for food in pilgrimage are cattle, except those mentioned to you as exception. But shun the abomination of idols, and shun the word that is false. Being true in faith to Allah, and never assigning partners to Allah. If anyone assigns partners to Allah, it is as if he had fallen from heaven and been snatched up by birds, or the wind had swooped like a bird on its prey and thrown him into a distant place. Such is his state, and whoever holds in honor the symbols of Allah in the sacrifice of animals, such honor should come truly from piety of heart. In them ye have benefits for a term appointed. In the end, their place of sacrifice is near the ancient house. To every people did we appoint rites of sacrifice, that they might celebrate the name of Allah over the sustenance Allah gave them from animals fit for food. But your Allah is one Allah. Submit then your wills to Allah in Islam, and give thou the benevolent news to those who humble themselves. To those whose hearts, when Allah is mentioned, are filled with fear, who show patient perseverance over their afflictions, keep up regular prayer, and spend in charity out of what we have bestowed upon them. The sacrificial camels we have made for you as amongst the symbols from Allah. In them is much benevolence for you. Then pronounce the name of Allah over them as they line up for sacrifice. When they are down on their sides after slaughter, eat ye thereof, and feed such as beg not, but live in contentment, and such as beg with due humility. Thus have we made animals subject to you, that ye may be grateful. It is not their meat nor their blood that reaches Allah, it is your piety that reaches Allah. Allah has thus made them subject to you, that ye may glorify Allah for Allah's guidance to you, and proclaim the benevolent news to all who do right. Verily Allah will defend from ill those who believe. Verily Allah loveth not any that is a traitor to faith or show ingratitude. To those against whom war is made, permission is given to fight because they are wronged, and verily Allah is most powerful for their aid. They are those who have been expelled from their homes in defiance of right for no cause except that they say, Our Lord is Allah. Did not Allah check one set of people by means of another, there would surely have been pulled down monasteries, churches, synagogues, and masjids in which the name of Allah is commemorated in abundant measure. Allah will certainly aid those who aid Allah's cause, for verily Allah is full of strength, exalted in might, able to enforce Allah's will. They are those who, if we establish them in the land, establish regular prayer and give regular charity, enjoin the right and forbid wrong. With Allah rests the end and decision of all affairs. If they treat thy mission as false, so did the peoples before them with their prophets, the people of Noah and Ad and Tamud, those of Abraham and Lot. And the companions of the Madian people, and Moshe was rejected in the same way. But I granted respite to the unbelievers, and only after that did I punish them. but how terrible was my rejection of them. How many populations have we destroyed which were given to wrongdoing? They tumbled down on their roofs, and how many wells are lying idle and neglected, and castles lofty and well built? Do they not travel through the land, that their hearts and minds may thus learn wisdom, and their ears may thus learn to hear? Truly it is not their eyes that are blind, but their hearts which are in their breasts. When yet they ask thee to hasten on the punishment, but Allah will not fail in Allah's promise. Verily a day in the sight of thy Lord is like 1,000 years of your reckoning. And to how many populations did I give respite, which were given to wrongdoing? In the end I punish them. To me is the destination of all. Say, O men, I am sent to you only to give a clear warning. Those who believe and work righteousness, for them is forgiveness and sustenance most generous. But those who strive against our signs to frustrate them, they will be companions of the fire. Never did we send an apostle or a prophet before thee, but when he framed a desire, Satan threw some vanity into his desire. But Allah will cancel anything vain that Satan throws in, and Allah will confirm and establish Allah's signs, for Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. That Allah may make the suggestions thrown in by Satan but a trial for those in whose hearts is a disease and who are hardened of heart. Verily the wrongdoers are in a schism, distantly from the truth. And that those on whom knowledge has been bestowed may learn that the Quran is the truth from thy Lord, and that they may believe therein, and their hearts may be made humbly open to it. For verily Allah is the guide of those who believe to the straight way. Those who reject faith will not cease to be in doubt concerning revelation until the hour of judgment comes suddenly upon them, or there comes to them the penalty of a day of disaster. On that day of dominion will be that of Allah. Allah will judge between them, so those who believe and work righteous deeds will be in gardens of delight. And for those who reject faith and deny our signs, there will be a humiliating punishment. Those who leave their homes in the cause of Allah and are then slain or die, on them will Allah bestow verily a benevolent provision. Truly Allah is Allah who bestows the best provision. Verily Allah will admit them to a place with which they shall be well pleased. For Allah is all-knowing, most forbearing. That is so. And if one has retaliated to no greater extent than the injury he received, and is again set upon inordinately, Allah will help him. For Allah is one that blots out sins and forgives again and again. That is because Allah merges night into day, and Allah merges day into night, and verily it is Allah who hears and sees all things. That is because Allah is the reality, and those besides Allah whom they invoke, they are but vain falsehood. Verily Allah is Allah most high, most great. Seest thou not that Allah sends down rain from the sky, and forthwith the earth becomes clothed with green? For Allah is Allah who hears, who understands the finest mysteries, and is well acquainted with them. To Allah belongs all that is in the heavens and on earth, for verily Allah is free of all wants, worthy of all praise. Seest thou not that Allah has made subject to you men all that is on the earth, and the ships that sail through the sea by Allah's command? Allah withholds the sky rain from falling on the earth except by Allah's leave, for Allah is most kind and most merciful to man. It is Allah who gave you life, will cause you to die, and will again give you life. Truly man is a most ungrateful creature. To every people have we appointed rites and ceremonies which they must follow. Let them not then dispute with thee on the matter, but do thou invite them to thy Lord, for thou art assuredly on the right way. If they do wrangle with thee, say, Allah knows best what it is ye are doing. Allah will judge between you on the day of judgment concerning the matters in which ye differ. Knowest thou not that Allah knows all that is in heaven and on earth? Indeed it is all in a record, and that is easy for Allah. Yet they worship besides Allah things for which no authority has been sent down to them, and of which they have truly no knowledge. For those that do wrong there is no helper. When our clear signs are rehearsed to them, thou wilt notice a denial on the faces of the unbelievers. They nearly attack with violence those who rehearse our signs to them. Say, shall I tell you of something much worse than these signs? It is the fire of hell. Allah has promised it to the unbelievers, and evil is that destination. O men, here is a parable set forth. Listen to it. Those on whom besides Allah ye call cannot create even a fly, if they all met together for the purpose. And if the fly should snatch away anything from them, they would have no power to release it from the fly. Feeble are those who petition and those whom they petition. No just estimate have they made of Allah, for Allah is Allah who is strong and able to carry out Allah's will. Allah chooses messengers from angels and from men, for Allah is Allah who hears and sees all things. Allah knows what is before them and what is behind them, and to Allah go back all questions for decision. O ye who believe, bow down, prostrate yourselves, and adore your Lord, and do benevolence, that ye may prosper, and strive in Allah's cause as ye ought to strive, with sincerity and under discipline. Allah has chosen you and has imposed no difficulties on you in religion. It is the cult of your father Abraham. It is Allah who has named you Muslims, both before and in this revelation, that the messenger may be a witness for you, and ye be witnesses for mankind. So establish regular prayer, give regular charity, and hold fast to Allah. Allah is your protector, the best to protect and the best to help. Tao Te Ching, chapters 40 a 45. The returning is the movement of the Tao. The weak is the utilization of the Tao. The myriad things of the world are born of being. Being is born of non-being. Higher people hear of the Tao, they diligently practice it. Average people hear of the Tao, they sometimes keep it and sometimes lose it. Lower people hear of the Tao, they laugh loudly at it. If they do not laugh, it would not be the Tao. Therefore a proverb has the following: the clear Tao appears unclear. The advancing Tao appears to retreat. The smooth Tao appears uneven. High virtue appears like a valley. Great integrity appears like disgrace. Encompassing virtue appears insufficient. Building virtue appears inactive. True substance appears inconstant. The great square has no corners. The great vessel is late in completion. The great music is imperceptible in sound. The great image has no form. The Tao is hidden and nameless, yet it is only the Tao that excels in giving and completing everything. Tao produces one. One produces two. Two produce three. Three produce myriad things. Myriad things backed by yin and embracing yang achieve harmony by integrating their energy. What the people dislike are alone, bereft, and unworthy. But the rulers call themselves with these terms. So with all things, appear to take loss but benefit, or receive benefit but lose. What the ancients taught, I will also teach. The violent one cannot have a natural death. I will utilize this as the principle of all teachings. The softest things of the world override the hardest things of the world. That which has no substance enters into that which has no openings. From this I know the benefits of unattached actions, the teaching without words, the benefits of actions without attachment are rarely matched in the world. Fame or the self, which is dearer, the self or wealth, which is greater, gain or loss, which is further painful. Thus excessive love must lead to great spending. Excessive hoarding must lead to heavy loss. Knowing contentment avoids disgrace. Knowing when to stop avoids danger. Thus one can endure indefinitely. Great perfection seems flawed. Its function is without failure. Great fullness seems empty. Its function is without exhaustion. Great straightness seems bent. Great skill seems unrefined. Great eloquence seems inarticulate. Movement overcomes cold. Stillness overcomes heat. Clear quietness is the standard of the world. Alhamdulillah, Rahmani Rahim, Allah Abha. Deus não sei que é essential, santo fakito no mentuum, bahigu salam. Dakuda fehunda. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher ketzanu bo mezatav v'tzivanu l'sok b'dvar Torah. Kyrie eleison. Sivu masu savegatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabona. Frekako. Akwaba. Upendo na amani. Umenjeka. Sheshe. Kamosanida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wakantaka. Talk. Badoga shingun. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with the God. Atajami Atafanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Alhamdulillah Rahmani Rahim. Allah Abha. Deus nos dá que essentiales santo fakita nomen tuum. Bahigu sanam. Dakuda fehunda. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Sivu maso savegatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabona. Frekako. Akwaba upenda na amani. Umenjeka. Sheshe. Kamosunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wakantaka. Talk odoga shingun. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Lord, may the God. Atajama yatafanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Zaijian. Adios. Tehe chakaris. Asumudo. Keda ufred. One love and peace.